Henry landlord is at the door. Henry he seems to look extremely angry. Henry is knocking the door heavily. My wife screamed with fear. How many months it's been that we haven't paid the rent? I asked. 6, maybe 7 months, I guess. You take care of him and don't tell I'm at home. Then I ran quickly and hid in the lawn. My wife opens the door slowly. Then I heard the landlord's voice. I want my money today. I want my rent. Sorry, sir, we don't have money right now. You do this almost every month. It's been 8 months you haven't paid the rent. Tell me, why do you do it? My wife didn't answer. I ask you a question. Why can't you pay my money? We don't have money right now, sir. I can't help it right now. You can't help it, you stupid women. I heard him shouting at her so loudly she began to cry and he shouted out her harder. I stood on the front lawn and listened. After a while that irritating voice stopped. I could hear my wife sobbing. Then he stopped. If I don't got my money in 15 days, you have to empty my house. This time he said in very calm voice and left. My wife came slowly toward the lawn sobbing. She shouted, "It's all because of you, Henry. You spent all the money drinking alcohol and buying expensive gears for your motorcycle. If you have saved those money, I did not have to listen those bitter words from landlord. You spent the money and I had to listen." She shouted harder and left. My wife had a very weird habit of playing violin when she is sad. I sat down the lawn feeling guilty cause she was right. Then I heard the violin. It was a very sad violin. I didn't like the way my wife played. I sat and listened for some time, but the music didn't get any better. The sweet words of landlord had hardened inside of me. I no longer felt like sitting. The afternoon light hurt my eyes. I felt like vomiting. I got up and walked inside the home. 15 days later, I decided to move back to my parents' house. And my wife, she is not mine anymore. She left me. I was lonely sitting at the station, close against the side of the station. There was the warm shadow of the building and a curtain made of bamboo beads hung across the open door into the bar to keep flies outside. I decided to go there and wait for the train. The Jewish and the girl with him sat next to me in another table. The distance was very little, so obviously their talk can be heard clearly. But I didn't bother to listen their talks because I was dealing with their intense desire to get rich and show my wife that what I am capable of. It was very hot and express from Barcelona would come in 40 minutes. It stopped at this junction for 2 minutes and went on to Madrid. A poor farmer runs into the Jew, he snarls. How are you all Jews so smart and successful? Tell me your secret. The Jewish man doesn't want any trouble. He tries to avoid answering, but the farmer is persistent. Finally, he responds, "Well, you see, we Jews have a special food, salted fish. We eat it every day and it makes us smart." The farmer was impressed and he arranged to buy a jar of herring from the Jewish man for $30. The farmer was leaving the bar after then. His eyes immediately caught on the same jar on the cupboard, labeled a price tag of $15. The farmer asked the owner of the bar, "Isn't it magical food?" Owner answered, "What the hell? It is just a normal salted fish. Who said you so?" "That Jewish man," he pointed. The owner answered, "I think he is fooling you, sir. He brought this fish before you entered the bar from me." The poor farmer was furious. "Jew, you cheated me. You sold me the herring for $30, but I can get the same jar at the market for only $15. And most important thing, it isn't magical but a normal food." "See," responds the Jew, "you are smarter already." I was so impressed how the Jewish man handled the situation, and I believe the lady was too. The lady taken off her hat and put it on the table. "Damn, you Jewish guys are so smart. You started too, huh, young lady?" I also had same question. Why Jewish are so intelligent and rich? The women said. Jewish people are wealthy for the same reasons that some of every group are wealthy. Most of us are not for the same reason that most of every group are not wealthy. But I still think there is some secret that the Jewish knows that we don't. Why do you think so? Because according to the research, 23% of Jews earn $200K per year, and in America, 4% of US adults claim this type of income, and 1/3 of the millionaires in the United States are Jews, and 18% of the top 40 richest person in the United States are Jewish. All you guys are smart and rich. I was very impressed by the knowledge of that pretty young lady too. The Jewish guy replied, "Do you mean are all Jewish people rich?" The answer to that is no. Jews are poor, rich, middle class, educated, illiterate, insular, cosmopolitan. There are around 14 million Jews and some of them are rich. But you are not completely wrong. There are some secrets and teachings in our culture that encourage and helps us to build wealth. Would you do something for me right now? I can do anything for you. Would you please share the secret with me? Okay, sure. 2 large beer, please, the women shouted. I opened my ears as much as I could to hear what the Jews had to say, cause I respect Jews a lot. My thought about this is that who has been through more than the Jews? The Jewish man started, well, in our tradition, we have a habit of putting money in 5 jars. Immediately after we got our paycheck, we allocate 10% to the God, 10% to the charity. We invest 20%, save 10%, and rest 50%. We spend it however we want. This culture is ingrained in a child since the very beginning of his life. We live with our means. We always adjust our lifestyle and avoid spending carelessly. Rather than wasting money on meaningless materials, we prefer to do meaningful and valuable things such as supporting the community, family, and investing in their skill, knowledge, and education. We Jews put heavy emphasis on creating a meaningful community. Our community and network take care of those who had businesses. You don't see many Jews who are desperately poor because the Jewish community believes in sharing money around and in the rich giving the poor a leg up. And the poor don't feel ashamed to ask because it's expected that the rich will help them and that they will earn merit with God by doing so. But in an average community, no one talks about the next person. Even if they live in the same apartment, they could hear other rumors laughing and talking in the large house. Even their doors are opened and they know they are not alone. Still, they don't bother to socialize and interact with one another. They are so inspired by this lone wolf concept, and as time gradually passes, being a lone wolf would give them a royal pain in the back. Nobody has ever achieved anything of substance alone, ever. Every boxer had a trainer, every commander had an army. It's always been about the brotherhood. There is a famous and interesting phrase in the book called Talmud, fly first and adjust your posture. To explain this concept, let's say there were two people who wanted to be YouTubers. Person A started collecting money to buy expensive DSLR camera, microphone, and made plans to adjust lighting and perfect setup to shoot a professional video. Person B, on the other hand, started shooting video from his normal day-to-day smartphone with whatever he had for setup. As a result, the next year, the second person returned with 100k subscriber. While the first person was still making preparation, he failed to start because he was always preparing to start. Anything that always stays in the planning stage will never come to fruition. As the Jewish proverb goes, start first and then adjust your breath, take off first then adjust your posture. There is another great lesson in Talmud. Find the right direction, then dig deeper. There is no shortage of extremely dedicated, hardworking human beings in this world, but the question is, are you working hard in the right direction? Do you have proofs, progress to justify your input? If the answer to this question is no, then you need to stop and evaluate what you are doing to know if that is what you should be doing or if you are actually doing it well. Nothing beats hard work, but when the energy is not directed to something worthwhile or the right approach, it will be like working like elephant and getting to eat like ant. Selective focus is better than all meaningless busy hard work. Solve the poor heart first, then solve the poverty. So before I explain you this concept, first of all, let me paint a perspective. What is a poor heart? Poor heart means an intense desire to seek immediate pleasure rather than waiting for delayed gratification, thus missing good opportunities. There is a story about a man in the Talmud. This poor man had only a hut without a rooftop. A rich man felt sorry for him and gave him a cow to open up the wasteland. According to the rich man blueprint, by the next year's harvest season, the poor will be able to escape the poverty and won't have to starve 2 times a day. The poor man was very happy and drove his cattle to the fields every day, but soon he felt that life was more miserable than before because the cows had to eat grass and feed. The poor man thought about it and sold the cow and brought 2 sheep. After all, sheep reproduce quickly, but It didn't take long for him to find that life was harder and the two sheep had more food to eat. So he sold the sheep and brought a nest of chickens, thinking that chicken would lay eggs faster than sheep would lay lambs. But he was not satisfied with eggs alone. Every now and then he would kill a chicken to eat. As a result, no long after, not a single chicken was left. By the next year, the poor was still poor. People lack enough vision to stop going wide and start going deep. They pick one hustle after another instead of sticking to one and go all in. That's it. This might be the most practical insight I have ever heard of, Daniel the Gaul said. Then the Gaul looked at the bed curtain. The warm wind blew the bed curtain against the table. Thanks for giving me such a nice and wonderful advice. The beer is nice and cool too, the man said and smiled. Want more? No, it's enough for me. I was listening to the conversation of the Jewish man and the Gaul very carefully, and I really wanna thank the Jewish man too, like that pretty lady praise him, but my phone rang and it was my wife call, but due to the network problem the call didn't connect, so I stood up and walked to the end of the station. Across the other side were fields of the green and the trees along the banks of the Ebro. Far away beyond the rivers were mountains. In hope of a network connection, the shadow of a cloud moved across the field of the greens and I saw the river through the trees. I was disappointed because the call didn't connect. I returned to the bar, but they were not at their table. I started searching them. They were going out through the back door. I wanted to say something else other than thanking them, but I couldn't do so because they were moving really quick outside. And when I reached and opened the back door, they were gone and I never saw them again.